Hello guys, welcome back to US Healthcare Academy. Today I am making a video after a long time, and the reason for the same is because I've been busy with a project, a personal project, uh, a solution that I'm building, and the solution is basically a analytics platform uh, for healthcare. However, today, the reason for making this video is uh, I want to talk about the use of AI in real world healthcare use cases. So, before talking about that and showing you what I have built, uh, let me just give you a small demo of the quality measures platform that I've built. So here on my screen, you can see that uh, this is basically the front end for the quality measures data platform that I've built. And this is the dashboard page, which shows the measures and what their scores, what the performance is. And if you click on a specific measure, it shows all the patients, the details for that measure. Uh, if that patient is qualified for denominator or he has been excluded, he has qualified for numerator or not. And if you want to drill down into the details of why a specific patient has qualified or not qualified for something, you can just click on the patient and that navigates you to the patient records screen, which will give you all the patient's clinical records like allergies and the diagnosis, his medications, several other sections like vitals, immunizations, observations, encounters. So basically, you can see all the details about a patient on the screen. And then from here, you can do your submissions to CMS via API. And then from admin panel, you can just it's a standard admin panel where you can manage users, you can create users, delete users, or edit them. All right. So I want to show you the how the backend of the system looks. Okay. Uh, so basically, if you see, we have a clinical data warehouse here where we integrate with the EHR and pull all the data, all the clinical sections like allergies, diagnosis, encounters, immunizations, medications, observations, orders, and all the vital clinical sections that are required for computation of a quality measure. Okay, and then then there is this measures configuration schema, which basically uh, has all the configuration related or which is used to compute a measure. I'll just very quickly go through some of the important tables here. Okay, so if you see the measures masters table, has basic information about a measure, like the measure number, its name, the description, and all the criteria like what's the initial population, denominator exclusion, and numerator. So basically, basic information about the measures. Uh, and now all these criterias, like all the criterias for numerator and denominator exclusion and denominators, we have broken it down into uh, small parts, and which is called as that the event of that measure. If you look at the measure event code set crosswalk table, basically, for the measure ID 6, which is for hypertension, we have broken down each and every event into its separate, as a separate event, like hospice scare, like, does the patient has end stage renal disease, or is the patient pregnant, and what is this event? Is it a denominator event or is it a numerator event? All that information is here in the event type. Now, the important thing is that this event is linked to a value set OID, and I'll tell you what the value set OID is. And also to calculate each event, it has its respective sequel in this column. Okay, uh, so basically when the pipeline runs, it just picks up this sequel one by one, and it picks up the patients that qualify for that event, and it inserts that into a separate table. But before going there, let me show you what the code set is. So if you just go to the code set table here, so if you look at the code set table, so basically, okay, there's a huge table. So basically it has a value set OID, which and this code set basically has all the codes linked to this value set OIDs. So if you see, these are the codes, and what is the code system. So basically this gives us a linkage that for a patient to qualify for a particular event, uh, what codes we need to search for in his clinical data. So that's the code set table. All right, moving forward, as I told you that iteratively, when for each event, when the pipeline is runs, it puts the information into a table called as measure details. So let's look at that table. So if you look at the measures details table, oops, okay, so it has basic information like the client ID, patient ID. The master patient ID comes after doing the master data management for the population. The encounter ID, the encounter date, service provider, NPI. But what's important here in this table is, if you see, the columns of this tables are actually the events that I showed you. So hospice care is an event, housing status is an event. So after the after we run the pipeline, which reads all the events and inserts the data into measures details table, it inserts a boolean value if patients they met this criteria or not. you know yeah. So after this, so this table you would see, maybe one patient for the same measure has multiple encounters and everything. So after this, there is another pipeline which runs, and it puts the data into the scorecard table. So if you see, this is the measure scorecard table, and you know looking at all the events that the patients have met or not met, it is determined if that patient has met the denominator or not, met the numerator or not, and that information, that configuration information, is here in the measures logic table. Okay. All right. So after the scorecard, there is some aggregation done based on if the practice is billing as a group or if it is billing as an individual, and if the measure that is, if the measure is patient specific or if it is encounter specific. Depending on that, we aggregate all these results into the measure scorecard final table. So basically, if the measure is a patient level measure, that means that the most recent qualifying encounter is calculated. Okay, and if it is a encounter specific measure, then all the encounters that qualify for the measurement year are you know are considered. So that is what the scorecard final table is. It just does the aggregation. And then from the final table, the data goes into various other tables, which is for, which is again an aggregation. So if you see this tables, measure scorecard, aggregation, client, location, provider. So doing nothing but just aggregating the data by uh, client measure wise, for this measure ID for this year, client ID 1, what is the denominator count and what is the uh, numerator count, you know, all that sum of all the values is here. And then from here, the data displays here on the dashboard. If you see, for controlling high blood pressure, which is measure ID 6, we have denominator count 6 and numerator count 5. uh, so 83.33 percentage. Preventive care and screening, so denominator 10, numerator 9. That is how it is, 90%. So this is an overview of the quality measures platform that I was building. Now let's move to the point. I just want to talk about what is the use or the real use of AI, uh, you know, in this platform, or for that matter, in healthcare. So healthcare today is more data driven than ever. But even with so much of data, mountains of data, we still face one major challenges, which is the unstructured data, like the notes written by the doctors, and uh, also the discharge summaries, the incomplete documentation. So that causes a major challenge when we are trying to do analytics, like, you know, calculating or computing the measure performance, or for that matter, uh, calculating the risk score for the population. If the information like the important diagnosis, which uh, uh, add to the risk score, if are not captured or not documented, then that causes a delta in the risk score. So just an example, and there are several examples, like maybe in, where for drug trial, uh, for the patient identification for any drug trial, uh, most of the important data is hidden in the unstructured notes. So today I want to show you how I have tried to overcome that challenge, and how I have used AI to get unstructured information structured and use it for measures computation. So let's look at this patient's notes. So if you see, let's just look at the notes section, and the doctor has documented a one liner saying that patient has been uh, you know been on meds for dementia since last year. But yeah, he has said just instead of on. Okay, so it's a typo. For dementia, spelling is DIMEN, but this dementia spelling is DEMENTIA. Okay, and then BP on April 10th, not blood pressure, but BP on April 10, 2024 was 180 by 85 mmHg. Lifestyle changes discussed and all that. History of hypertension. Okay, renal transplant was successfully performed on March 15th. Patient has a history of end stage renal disease and has been on hemodialysis 3 times a week. So all this information, which is a very important information for a computation of a measure. So if you see this measure, which is controlling high blood pressure, let's look at the denominator exclusions, and it says that on dementia medications, uh, then end stage renal disease, exclude patients who are in hospice care. Okay, so all this information is not documented in a structured way, like a diagnosis code, or a procedure code, or a SNOMED code, but it is all in the notes, and it's a free text notes. you know so an example, this patient's most recent blood pressure should be 140 to 90. Okay, and if you see here, we have a note regarding blood pressure as well, where the blood pressure is 130 to 85. So now what we're going to do is, so I have a table here called as NLP results. So what happens is, the AI pipeline that I've written, the NLP pipeline, it goes through all the patient notes, and it dumps that information into, okay, let me, into NLP results table. Okay, now just look at this, patient ID 1003, and it gives the event short name. So basically this is an event where it tells if the patient meets this event or not. So here it has said that, yeah, patient has a history of hypertension with recorded BP readings and medication management. So if you see one, you say patient has a history of hypertension, well controlled with medication adherence. Okay. Now this is, and it qualifies for essential hypertension. So more like this, if you see diastolic blood pressure, systolic, the most recent blood pressure recorded was 128 by 78 mmHg. So all this information is coming from the patient notes from the NLP pipeline. Now let me just show you the demo.
All right. So now let's run the NLP pipeline. And before I run the pipeline, I want to show you guys that uh, I've deleted everything from the NLP results table. So this table is blank right now. And let's see what happens once I run the NLP pipeline. So let's go ahead and run the pipeline. All right. So the pipeline is running and we can see the logs here. Okay. So meanwhile, this pipeline is running. Let me tell you what we have done. So I have this patient notes embedding job. What it does is it basically I'm using the Chroma DB as the vector database, which you can see here. And what I do is for some specific patients which are meeting the denominator but are not meeting the numerator or the denominator exclusion, I fetch notes for those patients, and then we create the embeddings for those patients, and we store it in our vector database here in the vector stores. And then when running the NLP pipeline, we use the same embeddings to find the matching nodes for specific events. So, like example, diastolic blood pressure is a numerator event, and it says that the diastolic blood pressure has to be less than 140. Then the patient meets the numerator criteria. So so those are the events that we pass to the NLP pipeline, and in return we get the results if events are met or not. So meanwhile the pipeline is running. Let me show you the logs. So here in the pipeline process logs, we log all the ETL logs for all the pipelines. So here, if you see, okay, it is processing. What's the time right now? 18. Okay. So these are the recent logs. Uh, it says retrieve 10 nodes from Chroma DB for client ID 1, patient ID 1003, and then the magic starts. And okay, this is still running. It usually takes some time. Okay, it's done. So now if I go to the NLP results table here, let's see what we have. Okay, so we are going to focus on, so see, this is the event short name, which tells us yeah, what is the event. This is the original chunk, the patient notes chunk that we have embedded. And now here it says if the value set is met or not. So if you see, it says advanced illness. So this is one of the denominator exclusions criteria. Advanced Alzheimer's disease documented, which qualifies as an advanced illness diagnosis. So the value set is met. Now if you see, patient has end stage renal disease and is on dialysis, indicating chronic kidney disease stage 5. So this is also denominator exclusion, so it meets that. So patient is on regular hemodialysis 3 times a week. So basically what this AI model has done is it has returned us in a structured way if the patient is meeting that event or not. And then using this, we have another pipeline. So you see, if you go to the systolic and diastolic blood pressure, let me see where that event is. Here. Patient's most recent diastolic pressure is 90 mmHg, which is not less than 90. So see, perfect. It is given the reason. It does not meet the value set because in the notes it is documented that the patient's diastolic blood pressure is 90 and the measure criteria says it should be less than 90. The patient's most recent blood pressure is 142 mmHg, which is the systolic pressure, which is not less than 140. So that is the magic. So it accurately predicts, or whether patient is meeting that specific event or not. And if you want to see all of this for patient ID 1003, you can check in the patient notes. All those notes are documented. See, 142 by 90 blood pressure. The patient was enrolled in hospice, scared, and then even the stage 5. Uh, yeah, all of that is documented here. So yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. And uh, once that is done, then I have this pipeline which triggers, and it takes the data from NLP to data mart, and basically there it all this information that we have found out with the help of NLP pipeline, that flows into the scorecard. Yeah, so that's all that I wanted to show you today. Next video, I have also made a master data management pipeline. So this is also one of the challenging things in healthcare, not only in healthcare but all the industries. So basically, example, when you want to identify the same patient, uh, but suppose it is coming from different sources, okay? When you want to identify those patients as one, so this is the pipeline that I've created, and this also works very well. So in my next video, I will show you how I've created that MDM pipeline and how it matches the patients and merges them together. So this is also very helpful. So thank you for watching, guys. Stay tuned for my next video. Till then, goodbye. Happy weekend.